Okay, well, welcome everybody to our October edition of Community Voices series. I was saying it seems like it's been forever since we had one of these, but it was literally August when Solidarity was here. Just to let you all know how this series has evolved over the last year and a half, what we've been doing is hearing from all of the local groups that are part of our steering committee around the state for the last year and a half. We're hearing from Capital Area Friends of the Environment in Lansing today. We have one more to go, folks. That's our friends up in Marquette at the Climate Adaptation Task Force. And then we'll be switching out the series. Just a little preview here. It will be our theme for 2025. We're going to kick things off a little early on December 5 with Line 5. I love a good rhyme, good mirror statement. And we're going to be doing a series the whole next year of 25 focused on false versus just solutions to really educate the public and our legislators on why some solutions just are not equitable when we talk about climate change. So that's where we're headed. And I wanted to share a few of our actions before we turn things over. A couple things going on at the federal level. I was really glad to see this recent rule proposed by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration to protect workers from the extreme heat that, of course, climate change is causing, to give them water breaks, to make sure that we are taking care of our workforce and labor out there. This was a really huge thing as our federal government starts to understand the myriad of different rules and things that are going to be happening. I'll try to throw some links in here to make sure that you can find these things. I'll get the chat open here. Give me a second. I was all ready. Amanda, I might have to need your help to find the chat again. I'm just going to keep going. I'll put the links in there later, right on.
Yeah, I can put links in.
Okay.
What link do we want right now?
Oh, so I had them already here. To the OSHA petition.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you. It won't let me reopen the chat. Interesting. So you'll see the QR codes on there. We'll get the things in the chat. The other thing we're doing, I know some of you have submitted to this. We are collecting energy transition success stories, particularly if you have utilized the funding from the Inflation Reduction Act or the bipartisan infrastructure pieces. We really want to tell those success stories. The whole deal here is that when folks talk about climate and they talk about the things that they're doing, it's way more likely for other folks to understand that and to take those actions themselves. So we're really hoping that this inspires all sorts of folks. We've got a little bit going on in expanding our base as well out to our rural energy advocates. And as many of you know, there was a siting bill that was passed with the 2023 legislation to encourage siting of renewable energy across the state. It is not the draconian measure that some of the opponents made it out to be, but we still want to really make sure that local communities have the voice in those processes, what's going on, where it is happening. And we're working with a larger coalition of folks to really try to get local folks to understand that process, to write those letters, go to their township meetings. If you're supporting renewable energy, particularly in some of our more rural communities, we really would love to have you join us and be part of this campaign to help stop the mis and disinformation and get these things cited in the places that make the most sense in the communities that you live in. And we've just finishing up. I know it's 1 week to go, 1 week before election day here. We call it election season now since this has been going on for so long. And we're going to hear a little bit about Lansing's journey into the climate voter. We did a questionnaire at MyCan for everybody running for the House of Representatives here in Michigan. We had 35 responses. A Republican and nonpartisan person were in there, so we're calling it bipartisan. And I am amazed, actually, actually at the consensus. These are our climate champions, folks. Most of these folks are actually want to support a definition of renewables at 80%, community solar. They want to support our environmental literacy and educate our kids and grandkids about these issues. So this is really amazing. Check out our climate voter hub and you can see who answered those, and hopefully you get to vote for a climate champion if you haven't already. And building off our summit, I know so many of you were there at this year's climate summit in Ann Arbor just about a month ago. We were at the University of Michigan. Really a wonderful, wonderful event to see all of you at. Building off that theme of climate civics, since it is this election year that is all important, we focused a theme of our annual awards on that very same subject. So if you're out there working GOTV, if you are out there working the polls, if you've been organizing your community in this last year around civic engagement, we definitely want to know about it. Please nominate your friends and colleagues for this award. There is a youth category, a volunteer category, and a professional. The youth and volunteer each come with $1,000 prize to the organization or the individual. So definitely think about who the champions are out there in your world that are doing climate civics, and let us know. You got till November 11th. We'll close that registration process. Our Climate Culture Club is going strong. In case you might be feeling all the feels right after the election, on November 9, the Saturday after the election, we're going to host what's known as a Climate Cafe, which is really just a space to come and talk about how we're feeling about things. That we don't do actions, so you won't see people like me there saying, but do this. It really is just to decompress, to share how we're feeling with each other and support each other. And really wonderful thing coming out of the University of Michigan post-summit, they have generated free access for the community read, Not Too Late, which is edited by Rebecca Solnit and a couple other folks, a series of essays about why we should continue to do what we're all doing and have some hope out there that we can make this transition still happen. So we're excited to do that. We're going to host, they're not up yet, just yet, but we're going to host 3 different virtual book read discussions of this over the next about month and a half. So stay tuned for those two. Really, really amazing piece of work, and look forward to those discussions. Always line 5. I'm sure many of you have taken these actions because of the election. We're really focusing our action right now on Senator Gary Peters, who we hope you will help move the needle with us to urge him to help us shut down the line 5. You can now stream, if you're not familiar. We showed this movie just Saturday up in St. Ignace. Amanda took care of that, around Bad River, which is from the Indigenous perspective. You can go on our site, you can find the streaming now. It is a fantastic film that I recommend. And the other film that's out there right now, we're so lucky. We've got 2 films to be able to really showcase and understand what Line 5 and water and climate means here in Michigan. And the other one is Troubled Water, which is the adventure journey. We've shown this a couple times, and it's going to get shown again at Central Michigan University tomorrow. So RSVP and get up that way. Lansing's not too far from Central. We can do that. These folks can do that. And just a quick reminder, if you have events that you want us to share out, we have a very simple form that you can fill out. If you submit these, we collect them all, and we always put out an events newsletter for the next month, right? So we try to put that out on or about the 1st of each month. So as long as you get something to us by the end of the prior month, maybe give the team a day, right, to make sure they see it and approve it and get it all listed up there. But we want to be helping all of you share out all your events. So please help us do that. And with that, I am going to turn things over to our fine friends. Amanda, do you want to say anything about what we're going to hear tonight with Capital Area Friends of the Environment?
Well, I don't know if I have a lot to say. You went through everything that we had. Um, they have their own presentation, so if you can allow them to share their screen, I'm just really looking forward to hearing from them.
Great. So I know Randy and Marshall and Heather are here. You did a voter campaign. You're a year old now, I think.
Oh, yes. Happy birthday.
You should be able to share. You guys can take it away.
Randy, you're muted. There we go. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Denise. Thanks, Amanda. So we are Capture Your Friend in the Environment. We have three presenters tonight. Myself, Randy Dykhuis, I'm president of the board, our secretary, Heather Douglas, and our treasurer, Marshall Clabeau. And I also want to note that in the audience is Elaine Fishoff, who's also one of our board members. And so we're gonna try and keep this relatively short, this presentation portion, so that we can open it up for discussion afterwards and be happy to answer any questions and talk about anything that you want. So our mission and vision statement are here, pretty typical what you might find for an organization like ours. For those of you who don't know, and I know I've talked about this a few times in different forums, but Capillary Friends of the Environment is a relatively young organization. We were formed and incorporated in June of 2023, so just a bit over a year old in that regard. And then at the end of July of 23, we got our IRS determination letter that made us a 501c3. So in terms of our structure, we're all volunteer. We have no paid staff. We have a 6-member board. As I said, 4 of whom are on this call tonight. We've done a variety of activities throughout our first year, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We divided it among the 3 of us, myself, Heather, and Marshall. And I'm going to turn things over to Heather, and then she's going to turn things over to Marshall, and I'll come back at the end to wrap things up. All right, Heather, it's all yours.
Thanks, Randy. So one of the main reasons we incorporated was to serve as an outside watchdog for our local municipal utility. You might think, oh, you're so lucky you don't have to deal with DTE and consumers. However, BWL, because they're municipal, there is almost no MPSC oversight. And it's been very difficult to get them to rethink how they're producing electricity to begin taking seriously decarbonization. So before we incorporated, we were sort of always working on this issue among other issues. And when we incorporated, it became really important because in the fall of 2023, the Lansing Board of Water and Light announced their clean energy plan. Unfortunately, over half the money for the clean energy plan was for another natural gas plant. The reciprocating engine, internal combustion engine, gas peaker plant. And this was, called clean energy by BWL at the time. We have been trying to get them to change how they talk about this and change their plan to take that $160 million and do something more constructive with it than build another gas peaker plant. In 2024, we had a series, we did 2 different FOIA requests. They denied both of them without thousands of dollars of fees. We set up petitions that people could sign saying that they didn't want another natural gas plant. After all, they did just build a new natural gas facility in 2022. Then we found out there was an air permit that we could actually request a hearing for. And we did a big effort around the air permit. And then we actually did a rate hike pushback too, because BWL decided to do a bunch of rate hikes. And here, for example, the beginning of this is City Council member Brian Jackson in an op-ed from City Pulse saying BWL is not doing enough to meet its clean energy goals. In fact, they have never been clear with us until maybe last night, Randy, I don't know, on how they're actually going to meet the 50% renewable energy standard, much less an 80% renewable energy standard by 2040. Next slide, Randy. Okay, so we had our FOIA requests. They came back with big fees. We had more success with Eagle. Eagle was happy to share information with us. That's actually where we found out about the air permit application. BWL just said, nope, we are going to charge you a ton of money. And we're looking into working with a law clinic in the future because one of the difficulties is an ability to follow up on the FOIA legal structure. We did send the information about the FOIA to the Attorney General's office, and we're like, hey, is this even legal for them to be charging this much money to a small 501c3? And the Attorney General's office declined to do anything about it. We did a bunch of petition circulation. We crafted a press release for March 20th. And most importantly, we requested a live air permit hearing to make an event that we could coalesce community voices around. Next slide. The air permit hearing was May 1st. It was virtually. Another board member of mine on the board, Dusty Hort, and I did a Detroit News op-ed. We contacted a lot of local journalists as well to bring media attention to the issue. And what was nice was the event of a May 1st hearing created a focal point for the journalists. They could report that there was going to be a thing that the public could speak at, and that created like a moment to actually cover the story, which was super helpful. We had an amazing turnout. We had over 50 attendees at the air permit hearing. To consider the contrast, in 2022, when BWL got their former air permit before we incorporated, there was no public air permit hearing. There were 2 total comments on the air permit, both from BWL. This year in 2024, we had a public hearing, over 50 attendees. Everyone spoke against the air permit. Eagle got 120 comments, almost all against the air permit. We still lost the fight. Right, Eagle still offered the air permit, but we had made them work for it. It took about a month longer than they expected. They had to respond to all 120 comments, so that was good. And in addition, in the response that Eagle provided to our concerns, particularly around environmental justice issues, it was quite revealing what Eagle said. They were like, yeah, there is a community very close by, within 3 miles, that has high asthma rates and an order air pollution burden. But Michigan doesn't have any laws around that issue. The only thing we have that we're obligated to do, and we only do exactly what we're obligated to do because otherwise we're going to get sued, is we make sure that there aren't people in the surrounding area who might need the air permit in a different language. That's the only environmental justice policy. So this tells us that Michigan needs better environmental justice laws, right? That this is a key moment. So these are quite revealing in some ways of the structural issues that we are confronted with. And we also realize we need much better air monitoring in South Lansing. And one of the things that CAFE has been doing is trying to work with other partners and get grant funding to put in an air monitor in this area. So, we at least got coverage of the issue, and we got Eagle to respond to our concerns, even if ultimately in unsatisfying ways. Next slide, Randy. And then BWL announced they were going to raise rates for both water and electricity for their customers. And it was in thinking about this issue that we wrote a letter to local governments, all the local councils that BWL serves, not just Lansing, East Lansing, Delta Township, Lansing Township, Meridian, that when we finally got BWL as a result of this letter to admit that natural gas was not clean energy. My goodness, it took months to just get them to admit this basic thing that is written into state law. We also organized a response to the rate hike proposal. We ran this ad in local media, and there was a strong turnout objecting to rate hikes at the public hearing on August 20th. Apparently, it made BWL commissioners uncomfortable. I think one comment that was like getting a root canal, sitting in front of all the local residents saying, this is ridiculous. We can't afford this. They did it anyway. All right, so we lost that fight too. But again, we got news coverage of these things that was really important. And local elected officials have begun noticing some of the concerns we've raised, so that at an East Lansing City Council meeting, They asked BDO to come and testify in front of them, and they asked them pointed questions about their plans. Lansing City Council meeting, Randy was there last night. At least one city council member asked some pointed questions of them. The rest were acquiesced to what was going, on. But some elected officials are beginning to notice. So, what are the lessons from this battle? We have lost all the battles so far. But we have also brought much needed public scrutiny to BWL. BWL is starting to feel squeezed. We know this because they got their union to write a letter about how terrible we are to the city council, how we're unconstructive. So that suggests we're doing the right thing in some ways. And journalists and elected officials have noticed and covered these issues and begun to also provide some public scrutiny to BWL. We've also learned as an organization how many of the systems that we need to interact with for this fight work. We learned more about how FOIAs work or don't work. We learned about how the air permitting process works, EGLE, and the MPSC. Renewable energy plans are due by February 2025. This is another point of pressure that we might be able to apply. Next slide, Randy. And then there's another project that we're doing in conjunction with Catherine Alimo at MSU. She is doing this Earth is My Home project, which is this great project about helping people see what they can do to show love for the earth and then expressing gratitude to each other for their actions. Like, thank you for riding your bike today, or thank you for recycling, or thank you for composting. So she's interested in what actually might change social norms, including the use of the expression of gratitude to help move the needle on the kinds of actions we take. And she wants to run volunteer, non-political face-to-face canvassing around the Earth is My Home project, combined with having this online app that allows people to record what they're doing and to express gratitude to each other and receive gratitude. If you're interested in seeing what it's like, there's the URL on the thing and the I don't know what the QR code, I can't remember what it's called, but she's also interested in any tweaks to particular prompts or actions. And there's a tiny email on here. You can see Earth is My Home at msu.edu if you want to contact her for more about it. And she's in the middle of getting a new logo design with the rusty patch bumblebee as the mascot. So any questions about Earth is My Home? Happy to talk more about that as well. And now I'll turn it over to Marshall.
Okay, good evening, everybody. As Randy said, I serve as the treasurer of CAFE. I will note, Randy forgot to mention perhaps that CAFE really has been doing this work a lot longer than a year. We were doing this work under the name Lansing Environmental Action Team for many years, dating back to 2016, 2017, organizing to stop the previous natural gas plant, peaker plant by BWL, in which they claimed 99.999% likely that it'll be the last gas plant ever built. Well, fast forward 7 years, and here we are fighting again, and perhaps even there'll be more. So on that note, we're going to move to coal ash impoundment. So this is the remains of coal after it's been burnt. Board of Water and Light historically has been very coal focused. Look no further than our logo, the stacks. We have a leaf kind of spawning from the stacks as if we need a new beginning with a green future. And so the whole city of Lansing has been clouded effectively in coal ash. But specifically, there's a site near the Erickson where they're building they're calling it an energy park. It's really kind of a sad name for what it is, but there's a lot of coal ash impoundment. So this is the leftovers that is residual. It sits in ponds. Across the nation, there's huge issues of these coal ash ponds not being lined, leaching into local groundwater, contaminating your water sources. So utility officials, this photo here was a presentation that CAFE helped organize, a really great turnout. I think there was almost 50 people in attendance, lots of media coverage that you can find on our website, 517cafe.org. But But the utility officials from Eagle and BWL have said that some of these higher levels of toxins that are found are naturally occurring. We really have hesitation about that at Cafe. So we've been working to raise money to do an independent test with an expert. Next slide, please. So this is kind of a lot going on here, but I'm just going to walk through it. So this is a pretty good visual of the quote unquote energy park here. So around these homes or around these sites are homes within several miles. So we have Cafe, not necessarily members, but Cafe supporters that have been showing up to our meetings, hoping that we can get this extra testing done because they're really uncomfortable with where things stand today. Border Water and Light is supplying these residents with bottled water. If there was nothing wrong, that still is a little suspicious. But I do want to point out, if you look in the bottom left corner here, you see very high levels of boron and lithium, subparticles from the coal ash. So while they claim these are naturally occurring, these are also things that you monitor for coal ash. So that's an issue. This top graphic here kind of shows the way that it works. So the red is added modified to the image showing the coal ash waste moving into the groundwater, which really can affect miles of the local aquifer, affecting plants, drinking water, animal welfare. The list goes on of the issues from this site. And this is the site where they're building all this new natural gas. So they get by some of these regulations being outside of the city of Lansing. So there's no air monitoring. The residents don't have that comfort. So that's the work we've already touched on. We're working with Just Air to try to install some local air monitoring. So we'll be able to answer more questions about this work at the end of the presentation. Admittedly, Randy and some other board members have been really steering this charge, but still happy to share what I know about it. Next slide, please. So this is a fun capital area Friends of the Environment collaboration and just kind of energy around the capital area region. So we know that waste from food is one of our landfill's largest methane and overall just trash contributors. So around Lansing, there's several very encouraging efforts that have spawned in the last couple of years. So the first one I want to highlight is Eastside Composting. This was actually started by two friends of mine, Mike Dombrowski and MC Rothorn. You can see this new fun mural. This is their mascot, the raccoons there. So that's at their site where they run their compost operations. It's just a really honest grassroots approach to business. They're trying to become a cooperative. And so what that means is the owners, as well as the members collectively own the cooperative, can help steer how they want the business to be run. A little more local ownership emphasis. And this is a really interesting operation because they started on bikes. So I've had several friends over the years ride e-bikes all over town. They have a pretty big footprint. I mean, 15 to 20 miles. And they just only recently purchased a van to get some of the outliers. And in the wintertime, it becomes a little more difficult. But they still really focus on collecting this compost by their bikes, which is just really fun. Good for the environment, has some good visibility. And I love the community mural here that was just painted. That was Mike's wife actually just did that this week. And there's actually an unveiling this Saturday. If anyone, I don't know who's on the call, is in Lansing, though. You can find that event on Facebook where they're going to be talking about the mural, talking about their compost operation, and just how they're hoping to grow. Both Mike and MC have recently transitioned to full-time on this operation, so I expect to really start taking off. They're really looking for grants, looking for partnerships, and that's where Ingham County Land Bank and Hammond Farms come into play. So alongside the Fledge, which is a local business incubator, if you don't know about the Fledge, you definitely check it out. It's a radically inclusive space where we do all sorts of projects. I've been involved getting energy off the ground through Michigan Mosaic Energy Cooperative, community gardening, homelessness solutions, Narcan, safe space, art, music, culture. Right now, they have the largest cohort of youth entrepreneurship. So in the past, I've been a mentor for that. That's a really great program where the youth of Lansing can come out to the Fledge on a weeknight. They learn how to build a business. They practice their pitch, and at the very end, they can win up to $1,000 for their idea. So that's really a rewarding space. If you haven't heard of the Fledge, and love the Fledge, absolutely. Thank you, Amanda. And they recently actually purchased a farm in Lansing called Urbandale Farm, which is really going to increase their composting efforts. So East Side Composting, this is kind of an operation they have where it's a large shipping container. They host their buckets in there. Michigan Mosaic Energy Cooperative, we partnered with them to make it solar. So they have batteries, they have solar, so they can do their tumbler and run their water solutions to rinse out the buckets. But the Fledge had just purchasing Urbandale is really going to unlock a lot of new community energy. East Side Composting is thinking about moving their operation site to them. And it's really close in affiliation to Ingham County Land Bank. They have a composting site just in the middle of the city. And so East Side's already been kind of managing Ingham County's facility, kind of increasing the capacity of it. With the Fledge right there, I see a lot of good potential. And Hammond Farms, they're just a local leader. They're for-profit business, but if you need finished compost or wood chips or you name it, trees, they're a great resource here in the Mid-Michigan region. And then, oh wait, go back real quick. Last slide. So I do want to highlight the City of Lansing's composting efforts as well. So just recently, they had a Climate Corps member, which I will take some pride in, the Sunrise Movement. We helped put that on the map, and it's coming to be. So that's great to see all the Climate Corps members out there doing good work. They have 5 drop-off sites that are coordinated in the City of Lansing. And this is a document that the QR code will link to a document that is creating brown gold. So not only does compost enrich the soil, it builds our community resilience, and it decreases food cost, waste cost, you name it. There's tons of benefits of compost, as well as less pesticides. This is fantastic. Yes, it is. Thank you. So really, composting on a citywide level is a difficult task. You look around the nation, and oftentimes, we don't want to add another giant dumpster truck that runs around. So I think Lansing's doing a really smart job in that they're trying to keep it a manageable footprint. They're not growing too big. And a lot of these efforts, Randy and I and Elaine all served on our local Mayor's Advisory Council for Sustainability. So, that SAP Sustainability Action Plan came online just last year. And so, we put several years into that plan, and composting was a big part of it. So it's really encouraging. Lori Welch at the city's really a rock star. Definitely support Lori and her efforts. And if you know someone that wants to get involved in compost, doesn't want to clean out the bucket, isn't really sure what to do, well, you can look at this QR code, and right now the first 200 people sign up can get a free bucket. And I believe free, there's the drop-off site, so it's all free to you. They'll give you some education tools to share with your neighbors. So next slide, please. So this is the Climate Voter Campaign. I love, driving around, seeing the random signs. I was just in Meridian Township, and I was just on some random back road, and I saw "I'm a climate voter" with cafe, and I'm like, all right, there we go. So, you kind of see them popping up all over the place, and I think that really builds community. So I really like that campaign, and Randy's going to share more about it.
Yeah. It is nice to see the signs. We didn't get rid of all of them, but we have plans for how we can use what we've got left. So I would, characterize our efforts here with the Climate Voter Campaign this year as meeting limited success. We did put together a questionnaire, which we sent to all candidates for county office. And this year, all of the offices that are county-wide are up for election, as well as every commissioner. And we got a few responses, but not a lot. We put links on that to the responses on our website. So some of the things that I think that we could have done much better is that we could have gotten more word out more quickly if we'd gotten started earlier. We really didn't get this rolling until the middle of the year, which was pretty late to have the kind of impact that I would like to have had. If we had started earlier, we could have done things like take the signs to events during the summer, do some tabling at some of those events and so on. I would also, next time we do this, look at ways to tailor the questions more closely to local issues. The questions that we had in the questionnaire they were good questions. They were, in my mind, a bit more generic than I think that they could have been. If we had, again, if we'd gotten started earlier, we could have done a more precision-oriented job with the questions. I want to do a shout out to Janet Zahn, who did help me put those questions together. She was great in sharing what they've done in Kent County. And so my goal in life is to grow up and be Janet Zahn so I can have as much success as they've had. And then we just need to engage with the community and the candidates more. So a lot of lessons learned. I don't regret doing it. It was we got some signs out. We got some recognition for the organization. Folks who didn't know where we were. I had a county commissioner say, "Oh, I've been wanting one of these signs. I didn't know who to ask it for." And I ran into her at the Ingham County Dems meeting last week, and just happened to have a sign with me. So gave her a sign, and she was happy. One of the other things we're a part of is the Water Equals Life Coalition, called the WELL Coalition. And this is a group of about 24 organizations that are seeking to make water affordable for every Michigan, clean water affordable for every Michigan resident, and make sure that they have access no matter what their income level is. Right now, there are not very many protections around water. You have many more protections around electricity shutoff than you do around water shutoff. And that's just not right. And if you get right down to it, you can live, not well, but you can live without electricity. You cannot live without water, without access to clean water. So we got involved with this when I got a call from one of the organizers. And I talked with her a bit. We talked about it with the board, and we signed on with their pledge on their website. And they're a great organization. A number of, like I said, about 24 other Michigan organizations are part of the WELL Coalition, including Freshwater Future. I think some of you are pretty well familiar with them. A really great organization up in the Petoskey area. And we're looking to develop some champions in the legislature to submit affordable water legislation early in the next term. Don't think it's going to get done. Well, I'm pretty sure it's not going to get done this year. And some of you are familiar with the water bill that Senator Chang has been working on. This would be a companion to that and would extend what Senator Chang has started, which in her bill, and create even more safeguards. So, one of the things I did want to mention, because it came up earlier and I don't have a slide on it. I think both Marshall and Heather mentioned that we are part of a grant request to Eagle for an environmental justice grant to install sensors in Lansing to create an air monitoring network. We are working with the Fledge on this. The Fledge.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Go ahead, David.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
the food waste, at least in the Upper Peninsula, is using food feeding America as a way of helping people and not just dumping that into the landfill.
Great. I'm not familiar with them.
I'll have to look into them more. I've heard of them, but I didn't know they were working in the UP, so I'll definitely plug that in our local food waste diversion efforts.
So you guys ready for some questions, little discussion?
Absolutely. Let's go.
What you got out there, folks? I got some if no one else does, but and thanks to Janet. I remember having one of maybe when y'all went a while back and really talking through how to do the questions. And it's too bad Jonathan from Van Buren, who also tried this, had to bug off. His Zoom wasn't working because I know they've been asking local questions too. And one thing that I want to follow up on with you guys on. Amanda and I were just talking about this today, how to continue to publicize our results, all of your results, because I think part of the other issue is too, the more that we can put out there who did respond, that we're going to keep doing this, and that everyone knows that we're doing this and we're watching will be a big difference moving forward.
Right.
So,
And
yeah.
I wanted to add too, that we have municipal elections coming up next year in Lansing. So the mayor's up, city clerk is up, 2 at-large seat and 2 ward seats, I believe. So we'll have an opportunity to raise these issues again in the city elections. And I would love to make it a bigger issue in the city elections than it has been in the past.
Yep. Yep. And once, if we can really show the folks who did answer and tout them as our climate champions, hopefully, right? And that will put that pressure on other candidates to answer them in the future. Love it. You're getting lots of love, Cafe, here in the chat. Wonderful presentation. I see our UP folks. Hey, Audrey, and some other folks are around. Other questions for our fine Lansing group here? Well, I'm really wondering how BWL is going to, I guess, do they sort of get the runaround from the state laws from 2023 as well, right? As a municipal piece, because much of that is directed to the big utilities that are the public-owned, investor-owned utilities anyways, that are run by Michigan Public Service Commission, if I understand that right? Is that's the bind that you all sometimes, we hear from folks who really want to municipalize, right, and change that structure, and then we see. I think this is a really good way for folks to understand. Be careful sometimes, and you're in a totally different, really decision-making matrix and fight over there. So I wondered if we might, as a group, talk a little bit about that. I'll let you guys respond, and then I see Janet does have her hand up. But how do you guys really see that difference, and what makes it so different to really focus on BWL?
Heather, you want to take that?
Sure. Yeah. So, but because it's a municipal utility, and it's a municipal utility that actually has service areas beyond the municipal boundaries, so it's extra weird. So, for example, I'm in East Lansing. I'm a BWL customer. East Lansing has a non-voting member on the board.
What?
Yeah, so I literally have like 0 Democratic voice because I can't go to the MPSC to complain about BDO practices because like we don't regulate. Now the new renewable energy law does give the MPSC some regulatory oversight for the renewable energy plants, but everything else, like the rate hike proposal, just goes in front of the board,
Wow.
and it's approved by the board. The board is put in place by the Lansing mayor and approved by the city council. And there are board members on there who've been there on the board for over a decade.
Wow.
And it's total regulatory capture. All board members just do whatever the management tells them to do, and they don't ask hard questions. It's amazing to go to meetings where the management says things and the board just sits there and like, oh, okay. And you're thinking, why aren't you asking them X, Y, and Z questions? These are really obvious questions. Where is the deal? And what was interesting was when BWL had to come in front of East Lansing, because East Lansing was like, we have questions for you. One of the really sort of depressing moments was when the city council member asked them, so what's your plan for getting to 50% renewable energy by 2030? And they said, we just told you what the plan was. And the plan was just like, we're going to build some wind and solar without having any sense of the quantity of energy it's going to produce or what counted as 50%. Here's the extra weird thing about BWL. They produce about 3.6 million megawatt hours or distribute because they get some power from Bell River. Only 2 million megawatt hours are retail sales. So 40% of electricity that they push out is wholesale. We have no idea who it's going to. It's really opaque. So we tried to get some information from them, and they're just like, nope, we're not telling you. And until elected officials begin to put pressure on them and, ask more difficult questions, they really don't feel any obligation, or until we actually work with a law clinic to make a FOIA stick. Yeah. They actually claimed in front of the East Lansing City Council that we had only submitted one FOIA and they'd never heard from us again. And they don't know why we didn't appeal. And it's like, no, we submitted another FOIA that was narrow and you still charge us exorbitant fees. And Peffley said, oh, they only submitted one. There's the manager. I was like,
wow. Wow. Thanks for digging a little deeper in that one, because I've never I knew it was on municipal, but I didn't understand how it was appointed the board and really, where your points of leverage are, right? If you're doing that power map, like who do we really have to even target in Lansing for you all is so different. It's whole local education on that.
And every municipal utility is a little bit different in terms of governance.
Yep. Yeah. Janet, what's on your mind?
I think that just kind of following along with this same topic, I know that there's been some early discussion in Grand Rapids about, hey, we're sick of consumers. Do we want to try to get our own utility? And what I'm hearing from this is it's going to if we were to go that route, it's going to be super important that we build into it the processes that will lead to transparency, that will give oversight. And I guess I'm curious about how long has Lansing had its own utility? And, is there opportunity? Do you see opportunity to, rebuild any of that infrastructure so that it will give you a little bit more oversight, control, and transparency?
So Lansing has had its own utility since the late 19th century, I believe.
Oh, wow.
It's a long time. And there were presentations at the summit about public utilities and specifically about what's going on in Ann Arbor, of which I'm sure you're aware.
Right.
And that demonstrates how difficult it is to create a public utility. Now, there seems to be an alternative about which I know next to nothing. So I'm not going to say anything more than that. But the alternative does sound like it can give you more local control without you having to actually own the utility.
I want to know more about that.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you more, but maybe Denise has more about that.
Yeah, I won't bore you with all of it, but I will share a link to a report. So we had a University of Michigan law class last spring semester of 2023 investigate all the legal pathways to true public power, as many of you know, this argument. And that is one of the pathways that they investigated. It's a law class, so it's a little dense. It's on me to write like the public executive summary to this, which I still have not done. But this really lays out 4 different ways that folks should think about this if they really want to municipalize, right? Because that was the norm, as Randy said. You know, it's been over 100 years since anybody in Michigan has tried to do that. That was how it was done, and then we had our investor-owned utilities take over, and you know, in the rush to municipalize is why we commissioned this report, right? Because what really should we be looking at, and why wouldn't we just want to force true public ownership at the state level is really their overall recommendation. So I can lead you through that report at some time, or read what you want, and we should just have a session that drills down and makes that a little more understandable.
Yeah, I would say really look out for Ann Arbor's efforts on the sustainable energy utility.
Yep.
If anyone in the world really is going to be able to pull this off, it's going to be in Ann Arbor. So they're laying some strong groundwork, and even it's on the ballot next week to take the next big steps. So it's pretty exciting work if you're not familiar. And it looks like they did a session on this series, so that's great.
Yep, they did. Yep, Ann Arbor for Public Power came and talked about how they saw that happening and what we really needed. So it was a great session. Yeah, we'll pull that one back out.
There are 2 things to say about this in addition. So there is a charter revision process going on, and Randy's been spearheading, trying to think about what kinds of changes might be able to occur in the Lansing charter to give us more accountability, including things like making sure the auditor isn't hired by the board to audit BWL, that actually someone more independent hires the auditor, or actually thinking about term limits for the commissioners so there's more rotation, or actually giving voting representation to outlying areas. Now, I also have lived in Pennsylvania, and they have a deregulated grid. This actually is another pathway where you still have utilities who own and manage a grid, but you can purchase power from anyone in the grid. So I have for 15 years in Pennsylvania, we saw a house in Pittsburgh for totally bizarre reasons, being able to buy all of our power from totally renewable sources because that's who we contract with.
Wow.
And that's another way to sort of shift this. It would be a big change, but you know, solar producers, it's more net metering, and you actually earn your own renewable energy credits. We get paid for them in Pennsylvania. So there are like really different models, and that would decentralize the utilities because it separates power production and grid management.
Well, and Heather mentioned that in East Lansing, she's on BWL, but she doesn't have a voting. Delta Township is double dipped. We also get our electricity from BWL. We also have a non-voting commissioner. And then to make matters even better, that's where Erickson Station is located. People that are affected by the ash problem at Erickson is compounded because they are not on the township's sewer system. They still get their water and everything else from wells. So if they were not on the wells, the issue wouldn't be quite as serious.
Right.
But the amount of people that are affected by that is minuscule compared to everybody who's on the township sewer system, which gives Peffley, who I might mention has his house solely solar equipped. He put his own solar panels in. So he thinks he's done his part. But, you know, the people live down the road from him, but that really doesn't seem to be in his orbit of concern. And you're talking about the fact that we have a municipal electricity. For those of us who live in Lansing and who were affected by the 2013 ice storm, there was serious consideration of trying to get BWL no longer to be a municipal. But that was when all the problems from DTE were really hitting the fan, and the prices were jumping up, 2 and 3 times higher than what they were, which gave no one an impetus to really make a change because our prices were so much cheaper than everybody else who had a investor-owned electricity. It's just all part of the big scheme.
That's right. It's like one giant playbook, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
Terrible grid, raise the rates, no opaque system, right? Oh, it's there's so many similarities here in how it's done, even though there's all these vagaries in each local jurisdiction that has this, right? It really is the same. But this is why we do this stuff and do this work together, folks, so that we can learn about this and help all the communities that have municipal ones. Because again, when you look at those state laws, and people talk to me about this all the time, that's only touching a fraction too of our production in the state. It's not comprehensive as folks really think, and y'all are doing a massive amount of work in trying to convince and push BWL. And you said you had lots of losses. I see lots of victories, is what I said in the chat. Organizing folks, getting them out there, making this even aware, getting the elected officials to even notice this is huge, y'all. And I think you should be really, really proud of those efforts, because now this is a process that you all understand, and we can continue to drive folks to it, to change it, so that, I mean, my good, putting building gas plants in 2024 is just unacceptable. It's
Crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
We also have cultivated a ton of relationships with reporters.
Yes.
Really
Yeah. Wonderful organizing. I mean, really, really great job, overall, bringing people together, getting people to show up to those public meetings. It's not always easy.
It's not easy. Yeah, we do pat ourselves on the back quite frequently about the fact that we have generated quite a bit of publicity. We have formed some relationships with local media reporters. And to the extent where an environmental issue comes up and they call us, we don't have to call them. We don't need to put out a press release. So we count those as our victories. We'd really like to win something, at a BWL commissioner meeting or something. So we're looking ahead to 25 and see what other mischief we can get into.
Hey, good trouble, right? I'm wondering if you asked any questions about this, about the plan on your questionnaire, and if anyone responded to what's the makeup looking like for this election season there, and getting a new.
Yeah, so that was also part of the issue with focusing on county races this election cycle, is the utility is not their responsibility. That will be much more of an issue in the city elections.
In the city.
Even though city council does not govern BWL, it's a really important piece of something that they pay attention to.
Yep. This is also the bureaucratic state, right? We don't, our city council, it's the bureaucrats that are managing these pieces, right? But your only angle is still to put pressure on those city officials. So while we look forward to helping you do that campaign in this coming year, right? So that's this next year. It's an off election year for your city elections. Great. Yep. Everything we learned, going to translate that into your city election campaign. Love it.
And then the other thing that Heather mentioned too is the Lansing Charter Commission. The charter is under review. That could very well be on the ballot next fall as well, with some changes in how BWL is governed. So we're working hard in making sure that our message gets out to the Charter Revision Commission, so that we get our voice heard there as well.
That's right. My goal for you is that all of you are going to be the next board. Huh? That's what we're going to have.
That's where I was going to go. That had been considered.
One of the big problems is it's one of our board members was on the board, so we did sneak one in, the old Trojan horse, but it's a volunteer position, so that really, it's really difficult to
It-
ask someone, and it's, I mean, it's expert level work, but it's the current board is all it's volunteer, non-paid, and so that's an issue. But and then if it were to be paid, then it would be an issue of money influencing the
That's right.
appointments, and so it's really difficult. There's not a lot of solutions, but the charter revision comes at an opportune time where we're trying to leverage as much as we can.
Yeah. Well, again, you've got lots of love, Cafe, here in the chat, and I will follow up with you too. Thank you for sharing the Earth is my home piece. I want to make sure we add that as a resource to the Culture Club pieces that we're putting out. What a beautiful, beautiful idea, and the emotional piece of this just cannot be ignored. We've done that at our demise in the climate movement. So yeah, I really, really appreciated that piece y'all are doing. It is 7 o'clock, and I know everyone's got a hop. We are going to a volunteer training actually that starts at 7. I figured they'd let me be late. It'll be all right. But this was fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. Let's give Cafe a big round of applause here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for the
So
opportunity.
much work in one year.
Appreciate it.
Really,
Yeah.
really fantastic. For anybody that's still on, I just want to add really quickly that Denise talked about the False versus Just Solutions events in the new year. We're still in the planning process of those. So if anybody has any ideas that you can think of, either as false or just solutions, shoot me an email and let's talk about it.
Nice. So we'll get the recording up, and let's continue to work on these campaigns. Thank you so much for sharing all of your work. It was hugely inspiring. That's why we do these, and we'll be looking forward to helping you with all these campaigns in the future.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Woo, woo.
Yeah.
Nice job.